This is episode 6 of English Voiceover in Asia. I am your host, Yui Haruhara, and today we will be hearing from Darren Pleavin. Longtime Animax viewers may know him for being the voice of Yusuke Urameshi, Inuyasha, and male Ranma Saltome. Mind you, he is not the North American version actor for these, but those who live in Southeast Asia will be familiar with his performances. There was a jump between my interview with Charles Glover from the last episode and my interview with Darren this episode. In between these interviews, I worked on 2 very large videos about the hit action shonen franchise Full Metal Alchemist, and it ate up my schedule. That's not to say I didn't try getting interviews as I exchanged messages with people involved in the Hong Kong dub of Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, but none of them were interested in doing a formal interview. However, when I was in the process of starting research on Urusei Yatsura, an all-time classic romantic comedy manga and anime, I looked over a list of people that worked on the Hong Kong dub of that show. Most leads were dead ends, as the woman that voiced one of the lead characters told me over instant messenger she doesn't remember anything about the show, and all other leads either had no contact information or politely declined my request. But I never explored the possibility of Darren Pleavin. All I had to work off was a very old photo, so I reached out over Facebook, hoping I got the right guy, thankfully I did, and he agreed to do an interview. Turns out Darren is into nerdy stuff. When he and I were on a video call, behind him were massive shelves full of things like books, figures, and more. He helped fill in a lot of blanks about the early to mid-2000s works at Omni Productions, including general processes, projects, and other tidbits. Also, the day this podcast is going up is his birthday, January 29th. Happy birthday, Darren. Without further delay, here's my interview with Darren Pleavin. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Darren Pleavin. I'm living in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada now, but for a number of years, specifically, I think it was 1996 to 1998, and 2004 to 2006, I lived and worked in Hong Kong. I originally was in Hong Kong between the years 1989 and 1994 because I went to high school there. My dad was an airline pilot, and I fell into, dubbing just as an accident, really.
Huh. Really? Do tell.
Yeah. Well, so I went to high school in Hong Kong, and I went to King George V secondary school. And then when I graduated there, I went briefly over to a Canadian school to do my grade 13 because I was, from Ontario originally. And it was a Canadian overseas secondary school. But anyway, so I went back to Canada for some college, and I was away from home for the first time, and not the best student at the best of times. I ended up needing to get a job, and my mom and dad basically very graciously said, "You can come back to Hong Kong. Your brother had gotten a job in a pizza shop, and you can come here and you can apply to that same pizza shop," which was in Sai Kung. And so I did. And I had been working there for a couple of months, and one night Rick Thomas and his wife Ina came in with Henry Coombs, and I think it was Henry's girlfriend at the time, but I can't remember. And they sat down at a table, and I just had the fortune of waiting that table. And they said, "Oh, we're always looking for North American accents. Did you want to come work for us?" And of course, I thought, they were pulling my leg at the time, but that was kind of it. After that, I went into audition. Turns out I could, do the job, and then voila, I stopped working at the pizza shop.
Perfect.
So
been immortalized in various series.
Yeah, a couple Godzilla films too, and
that is amazing.
Various kung fu films, and probably some commercials out there too.
What other positions or jobs did you hold over there other than pizza and voice work?
Pizza delivery boy. I was basically, that was it. When I went back, it was specifically to get a job, and so I worked for the pizza joint for a while. And then I got into dubbing, and that was kind of my mainstay for those 2 years between 1996 and 1998. Now, at the end of, 97, 98, there was the whole Asian economic crisis, and the dollar crashed. And at the time, one of our one of the big contracts that were keeping things afloat for us was an Indonesian contract for like kung fu movies, and because their dollar tanked, we kind of lost those contracts, and then
Uh,
I had to go get a real job for a couple of years anyway.
well, what have you done since moving back to Canada?
Nothing terribly exciting. I like to tell everybody that being a voice actor was my favorite job, and my second favorite job is working for Canada Post, where I am
Hmm,
a letter carrier. So yeah, I've had a couple. I had a couple of jobs before doing what I do now, but this is
okay.
kind of where I get my my neat tan and everything.
Yeah, it's real hot this year.
Oh yeah.
Um, what's it like working for a Canada Post?
Well, I mean, it's it's got its ups and downs. Working through Canada Post or for Canada Post through the pandemic was a real interesting challenge. Our volumes um, were Christmas level throughout a lot of it.
Oh
So
my
we were
gosh.
delivering like millions of parcels, like not personally delivering millions of parcels, but like you know as a corporation doing it. So it's been fun. I think one of my favorite things about being a letter carrier is I get to spend a lot of just time on my own, delivering and thinking things up. I do a lot of role playing games, and so
Huh.
I tend to come up with like plots and stuff like that as I'm going at that time.
Now you mentioned over Messenger that you worked for a Games Workshop, was it?
Yeah, sorry. That I did work for Games Workshop. That was between 2000 and 2002.
Okay.
Yeah, so I worked for GW down in Windsor, Ontario, and yeah, that was a lot of fun. Again, I've like been a huge nerd, for as long as I can remember, and so getting into the dubbing and doing all of that was just phenomenal. Especially when I got into like series like Wolf's Rain and Ghost in the Shell and stuff like that, where that sort of fantasy stuff really, spoke to who I was
Yeah.
as a nerd.
What else do you do in your free time?
So I oh man. My hobbies are varied, and I mean, as you can see behind me here, I love to play games. I'm a big role playing fanatic. I probably spend more than I need to on role playing games. I'm also a big board game fan. I do a lot of reading. I do some writing here and there. Nothing major. But I also love to listen to music. I just recently started collecting records and stuff because
So tell me a little bit about the process of voiceover in Hong Kong. Like, what is the casting and audition process like?
one of the things about dubbing in Hong Kong is for the longest time there was one outfit doing most of the dubbing. There was another smaller outfit, and they kind of got some of the work, but the company that I worked for, Omni, did most
Mm,
of the dubbing. Right, they
mm,
most of the contracts, most of all the
yeah.
work, and so we were a team really assembled. There were usually like between 3 and 4 girls and 3 and 4 guys, and we dubbed everything. So as far as the casting process went, it would really depended on what your vocal range was. So I got a lot of young heroes and sidekicks and stuff like that to play, but I was almost guaranteed a spot in everything we did. There were only a couple where obviously I didn't fit. And because with the more kid oriented shows, the ones that had the younger casts, the women then tended to do like all those characters. Even the ones that you're like, oh look, that would be a card captor Sakura. One of the characters there was like I would think would be like a male voice, but a woman would end up doing that as well. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah.
But so as far as like the casting process, it was mostly just the director sitting down and going, well, this person is perfect for this role, this person is perfect for this role, this person is perfect for this role. And
Okay.
so if I use like Captain Harlock as an example,
Ooh,
Russell was had the perfect deep voice for that. And
yeah.
so I wanted to be Captain Harlock. I mean, don't get me wrong, I campaigned for that role. But in the end, Russell was the perfect fit for it, and then I got to do another character in the show. I can't remember his name, but the younger. hero. I mean, does that answer your question about casting?
Yeah, because that falls in line with a lot of what a lot of other people have said. It's just kind of like, okay, you're the mom, you're the dad, you're the kid. Like
Yeah.
they just kind of like play it by ear. You
Yes.
don't. There's not really a casting call. They just kind of pick you.
Yeah, pretty much. Like I
Yeah.
said, there's like 6 to 8 of us, and you were going to do that character, that character. Now, with the like one-off characters that would show up, we would normally, because there would be like 4 to 5 of us in the recording booth at one point in time,
Mm.
we would just be, silently, signaling to each other. I would point at man A, and I would, and then Russell would say, okay, like he'd silently sign that he would be man B, and then we would just know that when those roles came up on screen, they were taken care of.
Okay.
Because the big thing about the stuff that we did was we were doing it at speed, right? We were doing it as fast as we possibly could.
Yeah.
So the fewer times we had to change. I mean, there were some times when it was possible to like pick up a script page without making any noise and keep going, But a lot of the time, I had to shut it down and actually, move people in and out of the studio. But
What was the recording process like as far as like matching the lip flaps?
from inception to end, I mean, that we get lip sync dubbing scripts, right? So
Yeah.
somebody has taken the rough translation and they've tried to make it make sense, and then they've tried to fit it to lip flaps. Now, every scriptwriter has a different cadence that they write at. Some people talk fast, some people talk slow. So we would try and get a feel as we were doing it for the speed that the scriptwriter would have written it at, and the speed with which the character is speaking on screen. Like I did a number of lip sync scripts, and I would always try and match that kind of cadence. So the character on screen is a flap, 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 flap. So I'm not trying to put too many words in there. I'm still trying to get the meaning of what they're trying to say out without going over. And the studios that we were dubbing for really wanted us to match off-screen length as well.
Mm.
So even though like when a character speaks and goes off screen, you could continue to fill, time with, more dialogue, but they would want us to stick to the original soundtrack. Um,
Okay.
so in terms of that, you get your lip sync script, you get it down on the page, you have all your pauses and everything in it. And if that is accurate, if the scripts that were written by Michael Quinn were usually really good,
Mm.
we could get in there. But there are always some scripts that aren't going to be so great. They're not fit really perfectly, and so we would have to really get it. And this is where Candace was really good at it,
Mm.
able to like ad lib on the fly, to like add in extra words if she needed to,
Oh.
just to like pad a sentence out, right, so that it fit the flaps. Um, and so yeah, you're looking for your character on screen to start speaking, and then hopefully the pauses are all in the right place so you can just go from page to screen, watching what you're doing. I mean, has
Huh.
anybody talked to you about like the actual process of what we're doing when we're sitting there?
A lot of what people talk about, I think, is after you left, because like Michael Pizzuto, that's like late 2000s, early 2010s.
Okay.
So you
Okay.
can go ahead
So
and go into that.
yeah, so like from my perspective, we would get in, the 4 or 5 of us cram into the room, shut the door, and then we all had these little radios with a single earphone, and that would be tuned into the original soundtrack. And so as the original soundtrack is playing in your ear, you're memorizing the first couple words of your character's dialogue. And then you're looking up and you're watching for your character on screen. And so you can hear him and you can see him speak. And that kind of like syncs everything up,
Mm.
because trying to do it when you're just watching for him and trying to do it if you're just listening for him, you're always going to be a little behind. But combining those two, you tend to be able to anticipate things a little bit better. And so as soon as the character starts speaking, bam, you start following suit. You're speaking for them, right? You're dubbing those lines in, and again, hopefully the pauses in the script are correct, because sometimes you get like a page and a half of just solid dialogue that you're doing
Yeah.
on your own, and if the pauses don't match up, then you could be all over the place. But yeah, good script, good timing, and you're able to just crank those lines out and go from page to page to page. Now we were, like I said, we were trying to do things at speed. So every 22 minute episode that we got in front of us, we were trying to get done in an hour and a half.
Oh my god.
And that was a good day. If we can get 4 episodes done in a single day, we were laughing, right? Some episodes were a little bit more difficult because either the script would be wonky, or somebody would be off that day, not off sick, but just like not having a great day, not really able to hit their mark, and so that might push it to 2.5 hours per episode.
Oh.
So we were trying to crank these things out because that was the nature of the beast. We needed to get the content out for Animax, or whoever was getting these episodes. And so yeah, you were in there, and that's why when I talk about like Russell, or I can't remember Dave's last name right now.
Oh, Dave. I talked to him. Dave Bridges.
Dave Bridges, thank you. Yeah. So whenever we were, or even like Candace and stuff, I used to love working with Candace because, and Andrea too, but we used to be able to riff off each other. So you could look at the line on the script and immediately think, oh, that's not written very well. That's not really a very a very good line. It's not. So you would ad lib it on the fly. You take the meaning of the line and you would change it around and gun it out. And if you had somebody like a Candace or an Andrea or a Dave or a Russell, they could get that line and fire back at you, ad lib back at you, which was always a lot of fun. For the people that weren't as quick, it usually threw them off. Be like, where was that line in the script? So that process, and of course you have the director in the studio who's following along with the script, who's watching to make sure you're not going too fast, to see if mouth flaps are short, if you need to add like a just or an and or a but or like whatever you needed to add to the line to just pad it out just a little bit, or to rewrite it on the fly. Some of the times we would get a new script writer in, that would need to happen. Sorry, I'm rambling on. Tell me
No,
about
I'm
yourself.
very interested. Thank you so much for all this info. I want the info dump.
Okay. And so when I first started between 96 and 98, we had the ability to like 2-track. So if somebody missed their cue, they could go back and throw that extra line in without having to go all the way back and do the whole scene again. But later on, between 2004 2006, I don't know if just the technology had changed, or the capacity to utilize the technology had changed. But sometimes they were able to stretch the line just a little bit, or if somebody started late but they ended late, they could just take that whole line and shift it over.
Ah.
There are some times when I've watched when I was living in Hong Kong and we were watching some of the stuff on Animax, I'd be watching and going, oh, I started late there. Oh, I missed that reaction. Oh. But sometimes they were able to fix that in the studio, just like shift things or whatever.
Right.
So especially if a take was good. But again, we didn't get any. This is the big thing that I think a lot of people don't realize. We didn't have any rehearsal. The first time that we saw that line showing up was the first time we saw that line showing up.
Yeah.
And so, we hit it or we didn't. We hit the mark or we didn't hit the mark. And usually, the director's there to stop us, or, as a voice actor who has, some pride in what they were doing, you could say, hey, can I have another crack at that? I don't think it was very good. Or he started to get angry near the end of the sentence and I didn't realize because I was reading off the script instead of looking up. And that was always the trick, was to constantly be looking up and looking down. You can't just rely on what's in the earpiece because you're talking over it. You really have to be looking up to see what's on the screen to try and hit your marks. So you're reading ahead and, trying to anticipate changes and stuff. It was a lot of fun. I mean, I think, again, that's my favorite job that I've ever had, working with a great group of people and working with some fantastic, entertainment properties.
Yeah.
Like some of those shows. I mean, like Candace said to you, she doesn't remember a lot of what we did. And yeah, I don't either. Over a 2-year period, both times we did probably hundreds of shows.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. One voice actor told me it's like a factory. You're doing like 3 shows a day over the course of a work day.
Well, it's funny when you go in for like the audition to join the team, you're not used to the fact that you're doing all your emoting, with your voice, and the microphone's going to pick up all the noise. Like you scratch your beard and it picks up the noise.
Yeah.
You breathe heavy and it picks up the noise. because there are people that will get behind that microphone and maybe they'd watch the Hollywood greats doing their stuff and they
Right.
look like they're running and they're emoting and stuff like that. But you would start clapping because the people on screen are clapping, and you're like, no, 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 you just ruined the line. Go back and do it again. Of course,
Yeah.
we were crammed in together, right? So you couldn't really like get all
Yeah.
emotive with your hands and stuff.
I know you talked about a lot of this already, but were there any other challenges of working in voice acting in Hong Kong?
Well, because we were always working for different studios, one of the biggest challenges was finding those studios, because sometimes you'd be given directions, but some of them, were little holes in the wall on the fifth floor of a building with no working elevator.
Oh no.
Well, one of the neat things about Hong Kong is like so much of it is concrete. Like you're used to North America, right? Your house or whatever is surrounded by earth and dirt and land and stuff. And so if you put your soundproofing in, you should pretty much be okay. And all the apartment buildings and the streets and the infrastructure and stuff like that, there's so much concrete because I guess it conducts heat or whatever. So, things cool down a lot quicker. But that means that the guy jackhammering 4 blocks away, you can hear him when you start to record. So we'd be sitting down to do whatever, be it anime or kung fu movies or Godzilla movies or whatever, and you would sit down to record and you'd be just ready to deliver your line, and suddenly jackhammering would happen, and it sounds like it's in the room with you, and you're like, okay, stop, we gotta wait,
Yeah.
and then it would peter off and it would stop, and you're like, wait, is he done? Okay, I think he's done. Okay, go.
Yeah.
And for some days, like heavy construction days, trying to like fit in the lines in between the jackhammering was a challenge.
Oh my gosh.
You can't control the outside environment, but it was interesting to sit in a fully soundproofed room 5 stories above street level and still hear those sounds like they were right next to you.
Oh my gosh. That would annoy me to no end.
But it was annoying.
Yeah.
Some days, you get like 1 or 2 episodes done because that's it.
Ugh. So what are some of your favorite projects you worked on?
Ghost in the Shell. I've always been a big sci-fi fan, and that includes like the cyberpunk genre and stuff. So Ghost in the Shell was fantastic. That's the one that really sticks with me, and I had the good graces to be able to do the lip sync dubbing scripts for those as well. So I saw each episode through because I played Togusa, Togusa, from beginning to end, right? So I saw the raw material come in, I shaped it, and then we dubbed it.
Okay.
So I was in the whole time. Ghost in the Shell's one. I loved Inuyasha. Being able to scream for 100 episodes was fantastic. And I mean, I took a lot of inspiration because I really wanted to do this character proud. So I listened a lot to the original audio and what Richard Ian Cox.
Oh, really?
In Vancouver. I took a lot of inspiration from him in what I did, and then Gundam Double Zeta was a lot of fun. And even though I know everybody tells me it was like the more comedic Gundam that was out there, and Wolf's Rain that I mentioned before, and Yu Yu Hakusho was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that is still highly regarded over here as an all-time classic. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, I didn't know you listened to Richard Ian Cox as Inuyasha.
I did, because I really wanted to get a sense of what had been done before, and being a Canadian, I looking for Canadian heroes.
Well, he is a legend.
He is a legend. I always remember watching Stargate. Was it Stargate Atlantis? Anyway, one of the episodes, I'm like, I recognize that voice. And sure enough,
yeah.
I'm like, cool, he's doing like live action too? Awesome.
Have you ever talked to him?
No, I haven't. No.
Okay.
No, I haven't talked to any of the North American folks. Have you?
I'm friends with several of them, but
sweet.
Because I'm in contact for videos and stuff, or from conventions or what have you. Cool. Richard Ian Cox is unfortunately not one of them. I would love to get you in touch with them. How about least favorite or most challenging projects?
Most challenging. I think the challenge always came not necessarily from the project itself, but from the script or the environment that day. Like I'd mentioned the jackhammering, but the script was always going to be problematic. If we had a new scriptwriter or someone who just didn't have the ability to take that raw material and make it legible,
Wow.
like some of the scripts we get that would come out. I mean, I was always accused of writing very Shakespearean dialogue. So like my dialogue wasn't, going to be the best, but I could put a coherent sentence together. And sometimes it was like you would look at the raw translation and look at what, the scriptwriter had come up with. And there's not really a lot of difference besides the spacing. So that always provided a challenge. Here we are complaining because we aren't able to get an episode out in an hour and a half instead of the 2.5 hours it takes because the script needs to be rewritten on
Yeah.
the fly. That usually is what provided the challenges or created problems, because I legitimately loved doing voice acting. I mean, you sit down, you get to be like part of this show, you're voicing this character.
Mhm.
And especially like as a nerd, as someone who loves all that stuff, you know, getting into the moment, being like, oh yeah, this is just cool. Like watching the episode
Yeah.
as you're dubbing it, and you're going, "Oh, that was awesome! That was an awesome fight scene or whatever." So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, you said you've watched some of the projects. I was curious, do you know what the general turnaround time was from the script writing to the recording to putting it on TV?
uh, that I'm not totally sure, but I know it wasn't that long. A couple of weeks.
Oh God.
Yeah, it was quick. Like
Yeah.
they were taking what we did and they were, you know, doing what they needed to do to it to get it ready to be out on the television. So it was fast.
Huh. I think I know the answer to this. Do you have any recordings of the stuff you've worked on?
Uh um no.
That's
What
what I
do
thought.
I have? I know there are a couple of things on YouTube.
Yeah. But I know like some people, like I know Russell has some stuff, and
Yeah.
Michael Pizzuto like he DVR'd it.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah, like I was wondering if you had anything like that.
I think I have a CD somewhere that has some Animax stuff on it, but I
Hmm.
can't remember what it is. I
Okay.
know that the stuff that I've looked up is usually what pops up is somebody comparing my Inuyasha to Richard's.
Yeah.
Um, his is always better. Um, or Tokyo Godfathers. That's another big one.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering if you personally had any stuff that wasn't released yet.
No, no, I don't think so. I would
Okay.
love to get some of that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, so you listen to Richard Ian Cox. Have you listened to any other American actors? Like, have you ever listened to Justin Cook as Yusuke in Yu Yu Hakusho, or...
No. When we were over there doing the dubs, there wasn't a lot of opportunity to hear that stuff, unless I was buying the DVDs from the US and having them shipped over.
Yeah.
Um, but at the time, we were, I mean, I talk about like writing the scripts and going in and dubbing the episodes. Like a lot of us that were doing both, we were burning the candle at both ends. So you would go into the studio at, you know, early in the morning. You would do your 6 to 8 hours in the studio, and then you would go home and you would start working on scripts for the next day. So having a lot of opportunity to listen to the guys that were doing, the same stuff that you were doing, it wasn't really there. You didn't have that opportunity.
Okay. And what was your... 'cause you said you did anime and you did, like, live action and all that. What was your favorite kind of work within
Oh,
acting?
okay. So I always love telling people about this. My favorite experiences always came from doing the Godzilla films.
Ooh.
Doing the anime was a lot of fun. It was like being in a factory. You were less a voice actor and more a voice engineer. You were going in to like fill stuff and get stuff done as fast as possible. And it was always like a through line with any of the things that we were doing, from the kung fu movies to the anime. But the Godzilla films were unique, for me at least, in that the way the film was done was it was taken and it was broken up into 20 and 30-second segments called loops.
Hmm.
Um, and they would break the script down so that they had like all the women come in the morning, and then it would end, they would slowly trickle off during the day as people finished their lines and stuff. And we would usually finish those movies. We'd start at 9 in the morning, and we would usually finish them around like midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning.
Oh my gosh.
And so the thing that I loved about the loop film is the 20 or 30-second loop, because of the way it was being recorded, it had to be nailed in its entirety every time. So you would get 2 or 3 rehearsals at it, and then they would record the loop. And if anybody messed up during that loop, you had to go back and do the loop over again. And I mean, but it was fun. I mean, you were doing a Godzilla film.
Yeah.
And by the end of the night, everyone is just, we're gassed. We're we're running on fumes, and we're trying to get these last couple lines done. And when you get tired, things start to get funny. And I remember being so like Henry Coombs and Craig. His name is escaping me right now. Craig and I used to be usually the last 3 in, so it would usually be the 3 of us that were left. And Henry was always the hero because he just had that voice. I was always a sidekick, and Craig was always like the grizzled veteran. We're sitting there trying to get these lines down, and Ina is directing us, and Rick is at this point usually asleep on the couch in the back of the studio. He's going to kill me for saying that, but anyway. So Henry turns to me at one point after take, and he said, "You know what? Every time I do a line, your next line you do louder." I'm like, "Oh, really?" He's like, "Yeah, that's just a going thing." And so we get to the next loop, and we practice, and we go to record. And sure enough, he says his line, and my line comes up, and I'm yelling it. And, it stops the whole production because we're just dying laughing at that point. 12 o'clock, 12:30 in the morning, and we're losing our minds because we're so tired. But I always really enjoyed those experiences because of the just the nature of the beast, and the fact that we were dubbing Godzilla films.
Yeah.
And my claim to fame is not. I mean, I don't have a credit on the TriStar releases, but I know that that's my voice. In
Huh.
Godzilla versus Destroyer, Godzilla versus Space Godzilla, and I think it was Godzilla 2000. So yeah, maybe 2000.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah,
That is awesome. I don't have much knowledge about dubbing Godzilla or like the kaiju films,
uh-huh.
so that's fascinating. And then you said 2006 you left?
Yeah. So I worked from 2004 to 2006.
Yeah, like when about in 2006?
It would be October 2006 is when I finally left Hong Kong for the last time.
Okay.
And at that time, I think the landscape was about to change. I mean, for me, like you've talked about dubbing not being something that's a person can sustain themselves on, right? And so, like one of your friends is a teacher and stuff like that. And I looked at my life at the time and thought, I'm doing something I really enjoy, but my bosses are going to retire. Somebody else is going to take over the company, and they're not going to have as big a stranglehold on the industry as Rick and Ina did. And so I knew that the lifestyle I was accustomed to was going to change, and I also knew that I didn't have any relevant skills I could fall back on if I needed to. I didn't have a teaching degree. I didn't have all these different things. So that's when I decided, okay, I'm just going to pull the plug. This has been fun, but I need to go get what they would call a real job. Yeah, and now I deliver mail.
Hey, it's exciting in its own way.
Yeah, it is. It is. It gives me a lot of time to think about stuff. So
that's really cool. And the last general question is,
yes.
What would you do to warm up your voice?
Oh, nothing.
Okay, fair.
Yeah, I know Russell would come in and Russell would do all sorts of like things. He was always drinking like teas with wasps in them and stuff, and like to like help heal his throat because all the screaming we would do. And I would just go in and sit down and belt. I never thought about warming up.
Okay.
I mean, it could also mean why the first couple lines out during the day were always going to be rough.
All right, so now into specific projects.
Yes.
When did you record Yu Yu Hakusho, and what did you think of the project?
Oh, when did we record it? Well, I know it was between 2004 2006.
Okay.
As far as like specific dates, I can't really tell you. I really enjoyed it uh, playing Yusuke because I mean the subject matter. I love horror, and while it wasn't exactly a horrifying show, it had to deal with yokai and like
Yeah.
ghosts and spirits and stuff like that. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it, and sort of how that storyline evolved. Um, so yeah, I I have a soft spot in my heart for that one. Now remembering like details over what we did at that time, that's again, Candace answered that question best. Like that
Yeah.
was what are we now? 2022.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Six.
don't I always I feel like I'm challenging people's memories, but some people have very clear memories of working on a show in
Oh, for
some
sure.
capacity. If it's like a really big role or something they really, really liked.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be like, oh yeah, I can tell you all about that.
And I mean, at the time, yeah, I was all over it. I was making sure continuity was good between episodes because I was invested in the material. But 16 years later, and we did hundreds of episodes over those 2 years. Like we really, really did a lot of work. Not to mention all the other things that we were doing because I did voiceovers for commercials at the time, and kung fu movies. So there was a lot that we were doing.
Yeah, because I was going to tell you about Yu Yu Hakusho is that script was not done in Hong Kong. That is basically a carbon copy of the American dub. Then they touched it up to remove the swearing, and then just touched it up with a few pop culture jokes.
Yeah.
I don't know if you knew that.
I think I was aware. I
Yeah.
didn't do any of the script writing for it. That was one of the funniest things that I felt was the fact that anime is not, you know, in North America we look at it and we go, okay, cartoons are typically, marketed to kids.
Mm.
And I think that's what Animax in Hong Kong were under the impression that these are cartoons,
Right.
and so they must be for kids, and so we have to totally take everything out because there was what was it, the show, um one of the Monkey King shows that had a really really catchy like theme song. Well, anyway, so there at the beginning of the show there were these guys that came out, and on the script it said that their names were or the name of the group was Friggan, so we were pronouncing it friggin'. And the guys in the studio were like, no, oh, no, it can't say friggin'. We couldn't say things like it sucks. We
Yeah.
couldn't say like hell or god damn it or whatever.
Right.
Sucks was always a thing that like killed me. I understand where it's coming from, but at the same time, it's like we just use that in like common parlance, right? Oh man, that sucks.
Yeah.
But that was
That's
no, these are for kids.
Kids TV. You can't say that. Yeah, because one of the examples I can think of the American script versus the Animax script for Yu Yu Hakusho was one scene Yusuke says, "In that case, I'm screwed," but in the Animax dub it says, "In that case, I'm toast."
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
otherwise, it's like a carbon copy. Yeah. Have you? Yeah, you said you haven't watched the American dub.
No.
Yeah, would highly recommend it.
Okay. Well,
Yu Yu Hakusho is a solid show.
It's been a while since I've watched any anime. Well, with the exception of Attack.
Yeah, I was gonna say Attack on Titan, but yeah. Okay, Urusei Yatsura. So I'm gonna be real. That's the reason I reached out to you originally.
Okay.
I'm working with someone on this, and we were just like, okay, what are our leads? Can't get in touch with Andrea Kwan. Candice Moore is a dead end. Russell Waite's not responding. So I'm just kind of like going through our heads. I'm just like, oh well, yeah. What about Darren? I haven't really looked him up, and I saw you on Facebook, and I'm like, I have this low quality JPEG to go off of your face from probably 20 years ago. And I'm trying to like match it up. I'm like, if this isn't him, this is a very good doppelganger.
Nice.
Thankfully it was you. I'm just like, I really hope I'm not messaging someone completely random.
Nice.
But anyway, Urusei Yatsura, I think you were the dad in that dub.
I'm gonna have to do a quick
This is just a show with such a weird.
Oh yes, right.
Yeah, yeah. Do
Okay,
you?
sorry.
No, you are fine. Do you remember anything about it?
Uh, what do I remember about it?
It was at Omni, correct?
It was at Omni, yeah. No,
Okay.
everything I did was for Omni.
Okay, everything you did was for Omni.
Yeah,
I'm writing that down because
yeah.
there's so many question marks about that particular dub. There's like one episode available plus clips of a few others.
That was one of the things. Some of the dubs, some of the ad libs that we did take a lot of liberties. Um, Sometimes it was like the line on script would be like, something, and we would change it. I think there was a why can I not remember Midori days?
Okay,
Yeah, where he has the girl in his hand.
the name sounds familiar.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that was another one that they had to heavily edit. There was a moment, and he was in like a bathhouse or whatever, and there was a woman there without any clothes on, and they were like they chopped that scene all to pieces. But yeah, no, it was the line was something about cooking, how he's really good at cooking, and I ad libbed in, if Yan can cook, so can I, which I thought was hilarious, and they left it in. So yeah, I mean, again, sometimes the issue that we were having with scripts was always going to be the rough translation, which was given to the scriptwriter, who maybe really didn't know what was going on, and
Yeah,
so they would change things to what they thought was right, and then you get that
yeah,
telephone thing happening.
yeah. Question: when you did the script writing, did you just receive a half translated script, or did you have access to the Japanese version, or?
No, well, we were always given the translation, right? So
Okay.
as far as I don't know exactly what happened in the back end, but from my perspective, what would happen is they would have a translator who would watch the Japanese version. They would dump everything down, and then that would get given to the scriptwriter. And sometimes it would be good, and they would have time codes, and they would have pauses, and sometimes it would just be walls and walls of words, and you would have to sort of figure out where it started and where it ended, and then who's talking and who's not talking. Because one of the
Yeah.
big things about uh, the way we dubbed things was the and I said it multiple times, I'm a nerd. So I love to pay attention to these things. So when I'm watching an episode and I go, no, 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 that's not a man A, that's actually this character. And he's going to show up again, and we better cast it right now. You can't just give it to somebody randomly. Or else you get things in an episode where somebody goes, "I'll be man A here," and then a couple pages later they're like, "Oh, I'm going to be man B," and then you find out that those two are main characters, and that actor is talking to himself a scene later. You know
Oh
what
my
I mean?
gosh.
And so depending on your scriptwriter, depending on how it's been translated, they would have given the character a name based on like who the character is, or it would just be like man A, man B, woman A, woman B, man one, man two, that sort of thing. So trying to make sure that everything was lined up was kind of everybody's job in the studio. You needed to be paying attention to that stuff.
Okay. All right. That answers a lot of questions about as far as when I'm looking at these dubs and I'm cross-checking it with like the Japanese version or something.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how did they get that wrong? And it's just one big game of telephone.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely. 100%.
Because yeah, just the video I'm working on right now. I don't know if you've heard of K-On! Okay. Yeah, there's some jokes that just fall flat because it's clear someone in the process didn't understand how the joke worked.
Uh-huh.
So it just kind of fell flat. But other shows I'm looking at, I'm just like, it's the same deal. It's like,
Well, there is one of the scripts, and I was telling the story earlier today. One of the scripts that I wrote for a show, and I can't remember which one it was. I want to say Card Captor Sakura, but I don't think that's right. Anyway, I came into the studio halfway through the day after delivering the latest script because I had lines that were coming up. And I come into the studio, I come into the episode that I had written earlier, and it turns out that I had made a typo in a line at the beginning of the show, which changed the meaning of the line around. And they had rewritten every line after that as they were going. based on that typo.
Oh no.
So yeah, so like I'm like, no, that's not supposed to be what's happening. And they're like, no, we changed this like an hour ago, and this is what we're doing for the rest of the episode. I'd be like,
Oh,
but you're changing the meaning of
no.
everything that's being said. Like this is not that's not the point. That's not what's happening. And they're like, no, we're too far in. We're just going because we got to get another 2 episodes out today. So
Oh
yeah,
my gosh.
yeah. I mean, the foibles of doing an episode in an hour and a half, but also like trying to write the post sync dubbing script as fast as possible. And I don't know if you've ever tried, but it is a painful process because you are, especially if you've got a wall of dialogue that one character is saying, because you're skipping back, you're skipping back, you're skipping back, right? Each time you're reading through what you've written, you're matching mouth flaps, you're trying to make sure the pauses are correct. And to start off with, we were using VHS tapes, and then we're using DVDs. And if the player that you're using doesn't go back in like small increments, it goes back in giant increments. You're watching the same like 20 seconds over and over and over again. So it's it's a 22-minute episode turns into a 2-hour ordeal, and then of course you go into the studio and you get to see it being butchered by your colleagues. I'm just kidding. They did a great job.
Yeah. But yeah, Urusei Yatsura, no real memories of that in particular.
A space girl in leopard print. That's kind of what I remember about that.
Yeah. No, it's all good. I totally get it. You helped answer a lot of questions already about what we had. But yeah, because like I said, just there's so many question marks, especially like how many episodes y'all did.
Yes.
Yeah, like obviously I don't expect an exact number. We have 65 at most, or at least. I mean, at least
of that particular show.
Yeah, like 65. I don't know if you would know anyone that would know.
Yeah, I don't know. I know I did. I think the most I know I did from any one show was I did 110 episodes of Inuyasha.
Yeah. And then whatever Yu Yu Hakusho ended up being.
Yeah, exactly. That was another giant chunk, and those were done over like a couple of weeks worth of work, right?
Good lord.
We were working. Some days we work 7 days a week, or some weeks we work 7 days. Most of the time we were working 5 to 6.
Yeah.
So we were like just cranking it out.
So.
Sorry, go ahead.
Inuyasha and Yu Yu Hakusho you did it in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, like maybe at most a couple of months, but like that was,
wow.
We were getting chunks. We were doing 4 to 6 episodes a day, 5 to 7 day stretches. So if you do the math there, if we're doing like 30 to 35 episodes a week of one show, right, we're getting it done pretty fast.
That is incredible. All right, kind of a curveball question, I guess. Were you in Detective Conan?
Yes, I was in Detective Conan.
I'm going to take a stab at who you voiced. Were you Shinichi?
Oh, you see, you're throwing names at me, and it's been so long.
Because that is a dub with tons of question marks. The only thing we know for sure is Russell was the detective, the bumbling detective.
Right, he was. Where's the cast?
Yeah, Kogoro.
I voiced 2 characters in Detective Conan. Yeah, I did do Shinichi.
Called it. You have the voice for it.
God, I did somebody else too. The guy who never opened his eyes.
Oh, you know what? I know someone who'd probably be able to answer that question, but I think she's playing Splatoon right now because
that's all good. Yeah, that was me, Shinichi, trying to do as young and quiet a voice as I possibly could.
Guy that never opened his eyes. I'm gonna ask Kate. She will know. I like Detective Conan, but I'm not as invested in it as she is.
They make a joke at some point about him never opening his eyes fully or something like that.
That's awesome because that's not recorded anywhere online. I've heard someone say, I've heard there's no recordings of the dub. The only thing we know is his name is Kogoro. He's the bumbling detective. And then I've heard someone say Andrea was Conan, the little boy.
Andrea's probably Conan.
Yeah, she just seems the type.
Yeah, Andrea. Yeah, Andrea has a pretty distinct boy's voice.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it, but
They were really
because
fun. I think the one that I remember the most was that they were investigating this thing, and somebody had murdered somebody else, and the culprit was the fat guy. But it turns out he wasn't really a fat
I
guy.
remember that episode.
He was just wearing a
Yeah,
pillow
he's
or
wearing a big.
whatever.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm like, this is ridiculous. It's amazing.
yeah. Question about that because you were Shinichi. You weren't the little boy Conan with the glasses. You were the older one.
Right. Yeah.
Did you do his internal dialogue?
Uh,
Probably not.
I don't know. To be honest with you, I'm not sure. I remember. I remember doing the character because he was quiet. They wanted me
Okay.
to do a quieter voice for him.
Okay, but you were you the fat guy?
No, I don't remember if I was a fat guy. That might have been Dave. Dave
Okay.
tended to play the fat guys. I'm just kidding. But yeah, Dave always had that great growly
Yeah.
voice for all the characters that he did. Yeah, no, I remember that episode in particular.
Yeah, it's just such a crazy thing to discover.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, oh no, he's been working out this whole time. Nobody knew he got skinny.
Yeah,
He's wearing a fat suit so that he could commit this crime
yeah,
and not be caught. But Detective Conan figured it out.
yeah. No, that is such an awesome show. It's still going. It has over
Really?
1,000. It has over 1,000 episodes.
That's amazing.
I know.
I'm glad to hear that.
And then last specific question was, were you in Dragon Ball?
Yes.
Thought so. I'd rather not thought so, but hope so. Yeah, I know. There's tons and tons of characters for Dragon Ball. But
Yeah.
did you do you know if you did the whole series or?
No, because that's where I was getting close to leaving, I believe. And I think somebody took over for me. I'm just trying to remember who I played. Was it Yamcha?
Oh, Yamcha.
Yeah, I think so.
Very cool.
But yeah, I can't remember. Andrew told me the gentleman's name who took over for me after I left, but I don't remember what it was.
Okay. Very cool. One of the cool things I've had happen with some of these really obscure projects is Michael Pizzuto sent me a listing from a schedule he had
Uh-huh.
via email, an old email from Dr. Slump, which is by the same author as Dragon Ball. And he's helped fill in so many blanks just by sending me a schedule.
Oh, no doubt. No
Yeah.
doubt. I wonder, I don't know if I still have, I know I have my old computer that I used to do all my stuff
Yeah,
there.
yeah. If you want to
wonder
do
if
investigation work,
investigative work.
Yeah, be Shinichi.
Yeah. I would have to look. I would have to look for sure. But I
It
may
just
have.
help fill in a lot of blanks. I love looking at Hong Kong dub. Just look at someone else's childhood, someone else's resume.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, another version of the work, and I do think it's worth looking at. But that's really cool that you were Yamcha.
Yeah, I think I was. I mean,
And
again, that was like so long ago.
Dragon Ball's another thing that's still wildly popular. I don't know if you heard
it's
that
huge.
the new movie dropped a couple weeks ago,
Oh, did it?
and it was #1 in its opening weekend.
Sweet.
Yeah,
That's good.
it outsold an Idris Elba film. Yeah,
The Beast.
yeah. It
I mean,
was
nobody wanted to go and watch Idris Elba fight the giant lion.
yeah, just Dragon Ball just outsold it so considerably. It was kind of an anomaly, but
Cool.
I went and saw it with some friends and we had a great time. But yeah, Dragon Ball's still massively popular.
That's awesome.
So that's a really cool thing about kind of connecting voice actors to who used to do projects like this to what's going on now, like Detective Conan, Dragon Ball, Shin-Chan, what have you. Is that some people don't realize these shows are huge or are still huge. I think that's all the basis I wanted to cover as far as, because you answered a lot of Inuyasha questions. So kind of some wrap-up questions. If you had the chance to voice any character or be on any project, what would you choose?
Oh, that is a question.
I'll
Where
tell
to
you.
even start?
Yeah, I can tell you the one I hear the most often. I hear The Simpsons a lot.
No, I wouldn't want to do The Simpsons. I think The Simpsons has got so many episodes that you would like forget about it. I mean, if I wanted to be in a project, it would be a video game project, and I would love to be in something like, Dead Space or,
Ooh.
you know, something like that, a sci-fi horror. If they ever do a sequel to Alien Isolation, I would love to be in that.
Ah, yeah.
Just yeah, that is a
Yeah.
tough question. There's so many.
Yeah. Yeah, you told me what you're currently doing. Have you ever considered going back into voice acting?
Yes. So when I first came back to Canada from Hong Kong in '98, I wanted to get into it, and I didn't realize because I'd always ever done it as part of the team on Omni, just how competitive
Oh
and
God.
how professional the North American dubbers are, right?
Mm.
Like the voice actors, and they're incredibly talented. But so many of them have gone either, they've started off on YouTube or whatever, or they've gone to school or what have you. So I didn't know how competitive it was going to be. Uh, I tried my hat at it when I first moved back to Toronto in '98, but I didn't get anywhere.
Ah, that's too
Um,
bad.
and I thought about it. I would love to get back into that, and do a little bit here on the side, here and there.
Yeah.
Especially in the video game market or something like that. Because then I could be like, oh yeah, that's me on screen right now.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I have thought about it, but again, I know it's a tough thing to get into.
So what's on the horizon for Mr. Darren?
I'm just gonna continue to do what I do, delivering the mail. Trying to, run games for my friends and do a little bit of writing here and there on the side, but otherwise, just enjoying life as it comes.
Yeah.
You know, especially after this 2 years of being, locked away,
Yeah.
it's time to
God.
get out and
Yeah.
back to reality.
Yeah. Anything you want to advertise? Do you do Twitch streams? Do you run a business?
No, I'm pretty much just me. I just do my thing. I mean, if anybody wants to reach out to have a chit chat, I'm always open to
Yeah.
that.
All right, that's about all I had for you. Thank you so much for taking some time and chatting me up. We'll stay in touch if I have any other questions.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, throw 'em my way, and it was a pleasure making your acquaintance and having a chit chat. Yeah, add me on Facebook, and we can keep in touch.
Awesome. Sounds
Cool.
good. All
All
right.
right.
Have a nice rest of your weekend.
You too. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you to Darren for taking the time to do this interview, and thank you for listening. If you like what you heard, please be sure to rate this podcast 5 stars and subscribe via your favorite podcast app to know first when an episode is posted. If you want to hear more info about English dubs, check out my YouTube channel, youtube.com/@yuiharuhara. Actually, I included snippets of this interview in my video about Urusei Yatsura. Check that out if you haven't already. Here's my guest next time on English Voiceover in Asia.
My name is Sean Pleavin. I'm Darren's brother that you interviewed.
If you're an actor that has worked in Asia and would like to be a guest on the podcast, please send an email to yuiharuhara@gmail.com. If you're a listener and would like to know when I have upcoming guests, please follow me on Twitter @yuiharuhara or stay tuned to my YouTube community tab. From there, you'll be able to ask guests questions that may be featured in their interview. Until next time, take care.